The United States has intercepted an oil tanker off the coast of Venezuela in international waters, marking a significant escalation in Washington's enforcement of sanctions against the South American nation. U.S. officials say the vessel was transporting sanctioned Venezuelan crude oil and was operating as part of what authorities describe as a shadow or dark fleet used to evade international Restaurant Homeland Security Secretary Christie Noem confirmed the interception on Saturday, stating that the operation was carried out by the U.S. Coast Guard. According to her statement, the tanker had recently docked in Venezuela and was carrying oil subject to U.S. sanctions. Interception comes just days after U.S. President Donald Trump announced a total and complete blockade of all sanctioned oil tankers entering or leaving Venezuela. The move signals a tougher approach toward enforcing energy sanctions that have been in place since 2019. This is the second time in recent weeks that U.S. authorities have taken action against a tanker linked to Venezuela amid an increased U.S. military presence in the region. Officials say the actions are intended to disrupt what they describe as illicit oil trade networks used to finance Venezuela's government. Secretary Noem said the United States would continue to target sanctioned oil shipments, adding that enforcement efforts are focused on preventing revenues from supporting criminal and destabilizing activities in the region. U.S. officials earlier told Reuters that the vessel was intercepted in the Caribbean Sea, east of Barbados. The Coast Guard and the Pentagon referred further questions to the White House. White House spokeswoman Anna Kelly said the tanker was falsely flagged and operating as part of Venezuela's shadow fleet. She alleged that the oil was being transported illegally and that the proceeds would benefit the government of President Nicolas Maduro, according to U.S. officials. Shadow fleets typically involve older tankers that disguise their identities, manipulate tracking systems, or sail under false names to avoid detection and sanctions enforcement. The Venezuelan Oil Ministry and state-owned oil company PDVSA did not immediately respond to requests for comment from Reuters. The Venezuelan government strongly condemned the interception, calling it a serious act of international piracy. In an official statement, Caracas accused the United States of hijacking a private vessel in international waters and forcibly detaining its crew. Venezuelan authorities said they plan to raise the issue at the United Nations Security Council and other international organizations, arguing that the interception violates international maritime law. President Nicolas Maduro has repeatedly accused the United States of using sanctions and military pressure to destabilize his government. He claims Washington's ultimate goal is to overthrow his administration and gain control over Venezuela's vast oil reserves, which are the largest proven crude reserves in the world. According to British maritime risk management firm Vanguard, the intercepted vessel is believed to be the Panama-flagged tanker Centuries. The ship was reportedly carrying approximately 1.8 million barrels of Venezuelan Marais crude oil and was bound for China. Internal documents from PDVSA indicate that the tanker loaded oil under a false name and was briefly escorted by the Venezuelan Navy before leaving Venezuelan waters earlier this week. Shipping analysts say such escort operations have become more common as Venezuela attempts to protect its oil exports amid tighter enforcement of sanctions. The interception has raised legal questions, particularly because the vessel itself was not listed on the U.S. sanctions registry at the time of the seizure. Jeremy Painter, a former investigator with the U.S. Treasury's Office of Foreign Assets Control, said the action represents a significant escalation in U.S. pressure. He noted that seizing a vessel that is not formally sanctioned could increase diplomatic tensions and legal challenges. Analysts say the move may also create uncertainty for shipping companies operating near sanctioned regions. Since the first tanker seizure earlier this month, Venezuelan crude exports have dropped sharply. According to shipping data, dozens of tankers have remained in Venezuelan waters rather than risk interception. Of more than 70 tankers currently near Venezuela that are considered part of the shadow fleet, roughly half are under U.S. sanctions. Many of these vessels are loaded with crude oil or refined fuel and are awaiting instructions. Traders say the effective embargo has disrupted Venezuela's oil sales, particularly shipments destined for Asia. China remains the largest buyer of Venezuelan crude oil, accounting for roughly 4% of its total oil imports. Analysts say that if U.S. enforcement continues at its current pace, nearly 1 million barrels per day of supply could be affected. For now, global oil markets remain relatively well supplied, with millions of barrels stored on tankers off the coast of China waiting to unload. However, energy analysts warn that a prolonged disruption could push oil prices higher, especially if alternative supplies are slow to replace Venezuelan exports. Some companies, including U.S.-based Chevron, continue to transport Venezuelan oil under specific authorizations. Highlighting the complexity of sanctions enforcement, the tanker interception comes amid a broader U.S. military buildup in the Caribbean and surrounding regions. President Trump has said the United States will increase pressure on Venezuela until democratic reforms are achieved. According to U.S. officials, recent operations have included surveillance flights, naval patrols, and targeted actions against vessels suspected of sanctions violations. Maduro has accused the United States of preparing for direct military action, though U.S. officials have not confirmed any plans for land operations as tensions rise. Analysts say further confrontations at sea are possible, especially as Venezuela relies heavily on oil exports for government revenue. The use of shadow fleets is expected to continue, increasing the risk of future interceptions. International observers warn that the situation could lead to broader diplomatic disputes, particularly if more vessels are seized in international waters. For now, the interception marks a clear signal that the United States is willing to enforce sanctions aggressively, even as legal and political debates continue over the scope of its authority, as global attention remains focused on energy security and geopolitical stability. The unfolding situation off Venezuela's coast could have lasting implications for international trade, oil markets, and regional security.